I think I've had the fortune to go through a number of airports around the world. I know that they search you. They search you. But I think in my experience, the search that you go through in a lot of airports is better than what we experience here. So I think we need to improve that so that people, well, they know that they have to be searched, they have to be screened, but make it less painful for them. So that's where I want to nudge the discussion so that this is the place that people think of and they can recommend to other people to come and experience Botswana. So Richard, I'm going to ask you to just talk to us about what people are saying about us and what we can do to improve this aviation sector. Thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. I'll maybe start with recounting the results of a survey we did last year. And it was a very silly survey done on Facebook, so it's unscientific nonsense. But we simply asked people of the airlines that fly in and out and around Botswana, which is your favorite? And we listed the airlines that fly in and around Botswana. 9% of people selected Air Botswana. More than 50% of people selected Ethiopian. I think we have a challenge running an airline in Botswana, if that is the perception. Like I said, it's not scientific, it's not statistically sound. As a statistician, as a market researcher, I'm ashamed to even share such unscientific figures, but it gave a clue as to the perception we have of our airline. I'll give a personal experience. I flew up here yesterday, we flew on Air Botswana. It was half an hour late. Okay, it's not the end of the world. As always, the crew on the plane are fantastic. I want to celebrate them. Air Botswana crew are just brilliant. They just are. But it led me to thinking about one of the things I think we don't get from the airline industry in Botswana is information. I would like the CAAB to make it mandatory, for instance, for any airline that wants to fly in our skies, in and out of the country and around the country, to publish statistics, to publish information. What's your percentage of flights taking off on time? What's your percentage of flights landing on time? What's the percentage of flights that are cancelled or postponed or delayed? I think we deserve to see that information. I think it should be mandatory, either on the airline's website or on the CAAB's website, that sort of information about every airline, so then consumers can make some sort of choice when they're choosing, when they get the choice as to which airline to fly. I would actually take it even further. And we have a history in Botswana of taking consumer protection further than other countries. My friend and colleague Gideon here runs the Competition and Consumer Authority. Our Consumer Protection Act is more advanced than the similar laws in any other country I know. We have a history of going further and demanding more, and we should continue that. I want to see, personally, details of why every single flight that was delayed, why it was delayed. Our flight last night was delayed by half an hour because the plane, it was coming in from Lusaka and was delayed coming in. But why? Was it weather, in which case it's beyond everyone's control? Was it something at the airport? Was it Air Botswana's fault? I think we as consumers need more information. We have a right to that. So we can make more rational, reasonable choices when we select an airline. The obvious elephant in the room is that sometimes we don't get a choice. Certain routes are only limited to Air Botswana at the moment. Now, I know we can't force other airlines to do those routes, but I think Air Botswana should be treated as if it's in competition, even though it's not. I don't want to pick on Air Botswana too much, but it is actually the primary airline in the country for those sort of routes. So what I'm asking for, and what I think consumers want, is more and more information. And I don't just mean the airline industry, I want it from banks, I want it from insurance companies, I want it from every industry. But I think it's a particular thing that we lack as consumers at the moment. And I think that's what would help consumers a great deal.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'm going to move over to Mr. Edmonds, just to share with us your experience, especially that you operate in the region, not only in Botswana. Can you just give us a regional view of things? What is it that you see out there that some of us who are based here domestically don't see? And what are the improvements that we can make? to boost aviation in this country. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I think what Richard has sort of come out with is very pertinent. And in fact, I think it should be beholden rather than the airline, because the airline will try and shift their statistics. I think it should be actually down to the airport to monitor the on-time performance of airlines. We at a board level at FastJet, we look at the on-time performance of both of our operating airlines, and it's very seriously, you know, and the chairman of the board is passionate about it. And we have our good days, and we have our bad days. I think the difficulty is it's very easy to focus on Air Botswana because obviously they're the national airline of Botswana and they're largely the only domestic player within the country. We have a situation in Zimbabwe where we're the largest of the two airlines, the other being the national carrier Air Zimbabwe. And on certain routes, we do very, very well. And on certain routes, you know, we never get a complaint. And on other routes, all I get is complaints. And I think the one thing with trying to push sort of a consumer type protection is, and I'm all for it within reason. I think part of the contract that a passenger enters into with us is the terms and conditions, and that's often how certain airlines compete. So if you want to pay very, very little, expect very, very little. If you're going to pay a lot, you need to expect a lot. So in aviation, you've got the legacy carriers, the traditional full-service carriers that are highly complicated and high-value products with lots of connectivity and sort of collaboration with other carriers, to the point-to-point carriers right down at the bottom, which are basically offering a much lower price, but that comes at a cost. So things like connectivity, missed connections. On our terms and conditions, it quite clearly states we are not responsible for someone's misconnection. And in fact, no airline in the world is responsible for a misconnection unless that connection has been booked by that airline. So we've got to be very, very careful. The other thing is the role that the airports play. So if we're going to look at penalizing, as they do in Europe, if you're late, if your flight is more than, I think it's 45 minutes late in Europe, you can actually start claiming on a scale, you can start claiming back from the airline. And yet they turned the whole of Heathrow off for nearly 24 hours due to a big fire, and the airlines had to pay out. It wasn't their fault. They didn't close the airport. And yet the airport themselves has to come to be part of the thing. So it's everybody in the service chain needs to be measured. And also, but the other thing is, when bringing in consumer protection, don't stifle competition and don't put in too much control that actually makes investors say, no, it's not worth doing it. So there still has to be that freedom of movement, and it still has to be attractive enough, the regime has to be attractive enough for private investment and carriers such as ourselves to want to say, yes, we want to fly in Botswana.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edmonds. He says we need to be careful so that we don't kill the airliners. We have to be innovative. It's well and good to protect, but don't make sure that the airline are not wiped off from doing business. I think that's the message that you are saying. Now I'm going to turn over to Re Nkala as the man responsible for consumer protection, and just ask him to share his thoughts on how we balance the need to protect the consumer, but at the same time making sure that you don't cause a financial strain on the airline as it is. In other words, where is the balance? Where do you strike the balance between the two? Because what Mr. Edmonds is saying is that the consumer or the customer also has some obligations that they need to take care of. It can't just be the airline or the airports. So, Mr. Nkala, where do we find that balance? And you can also share with us the rights that the consumers have, generally, not necessarily in aviation, but maybe just steer the conversation towards aviation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. I think let me start this way and say it is true that every business, I think there's been concerns even in the country lately that there's a lot of, compliance cost is rising in the country, mainly because of, the regulatory burden on a number of enterprises in the country. But even as we say this, I think we ought to recognize that it is very important that the vulnerable, who in this case would be the consumers, are protected. Because enterprises, much as they have all these costs that they have to deal with, not just the operating costs, but costs for systems, strategies, and costs for compliance. It is important that the consumer, because the consumer doesn't have the same knowledge that those who are supplying this, who are supplying the services have. So this is why the consumer has to be protected. You talked about the rights. Generally, not just in the aviation sector, there are a number of rights, and one of them to the consumer, one of them would be information. That you have to give the consumer information, and when you give this information, be transparent about it. The kind of services that you give, go all the way and inform them about, say, for instance, what are the risks? What are the warranties for instance? We've had complaints in the aviation sector, and we've realized from those complaints that some of the complaints really stem from lack of information that could have been provided by either the regulator in that sector or even the enterprise. So information and education. And also just recognizing that the consumer has the right to redress, provide systems in place, to try and resolve whatever issues that the consumer has. Some of these, for instance, at the Competition and Consumer Authority, we have received a number of complaints. A lot of them, we realized they could have been resolved by the enterprise or by Air Botswana, for instance, or civil aviation, also playing a part, their regulatory oversight. So now coming to the question that you posed, where do you make the balance between, regulatory oversight, in this case, consumer protection, and the cost that is, incurred by enterprise? I think it's a tough one, but consumer protection is a necessity, much as these enterprises also have to make business, but it is important that consumers as well. So there must be a middle point somewhere between the two. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Nkala. Before I let you go, what are the obligations of the consumer? Yeah, I know they have rights, but what are the obligations what are their responsibilities in this case? Because it is so that you don't shift all the obligation on the operators.
Yeah, there is a.
And you talk about sharing information. Who must share that information?
The honors first is the suppliers and the providers. They ought to share information, and this information is meant for the consumer. Now, the consumer as well has rights, responsibilities as well. You are not going to be receiving this information and then you don't act on it. For instance, you have the right to choose as a consumer. And in exercising that right, you have responsibilities to try and weigh. Look at the prices, look at your responsibilities really as a consumer. And some of the responsibilities in this case, other than just making the choice, it would be as well if, for instance, we are talking in aviation to say, you need to have a visa to go to this destination. That's your responsibility to ensure that you have it. And then to ensure that you look at the times. Most of us as consumers would complain about the scheduling and the delay, but it is also our responsibility to know about the scheduling even before we start. You're not going to rock up at an airport 2 hours after the plane has left and then complain. This is your responsibility just to make sure that you do your own compliance as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Rangala. What about delays? How do you deal with those?
Well, delays, let me just say a lot of the complaints that we've, not a lot, but a significant part of the complaints that we have received also would be from delays. But delays, in most instances, you'd be given time that your flight is leaving at a particular time. And then there are changes which are not communicated most of the time to everybody concerned. So when we look at delays, we are looking at this, whether the airline did communicate in time with the consumer concerned.
Thank you very much. I know that we get SMSs from the airline when they say delay. Yeah, so maybe, I don't know what Richard thinks about that. Yeah, before I open it to the floor. Thank you.
I take on board absolutely the points. I don't remember the last time I got an SMS from Air Botswana saying there was a delay. I don't think I ever have. Maybe I have. I don't recall in 25 years of flying with Air Botswana ever receiving a message saying my flight's delayed. So forgive me for being nasty to Air Botswana. But I do just want to follow up on the points about things like lost luggage and misconnections and those sort of things. I think, yes, it's up to the consumer to ask questions, but it's also up to the experts we're paying money to, like the airlines, who know more about these things than we do, to say, do you have a connecting flight? Have you allowed enough time? So when I go online and book an Air Botswana flight to OR Tambo, maybe a little prompt to come up saying, are you connecting to another flight? No? Okay. Yes. Do you know you need to allow at least X hours? We've got the tech these days. That's where we as consumers need to rely on the experts. And again, it's the same with banking and insurance and telecommunications and all sorts of things. We pay you money not just for a service, but for your expertise and your advice and your guidance. And I think we have a right to expect that. And I think it goes in all sorts of directions. Misconnections was the one that I was going to talk about because it happens all the time. But I do think there's actually was it section 13 or 14 of the Consumer Protection Act that says that a supplier must offer advice on any unavoidable delays. It's actually in the Consumer Protection Act that you've got to let someone know about delays. It's the law. But I do think we have a right to expect more education from the industry, from all industries. And there's one silly question. I don't know who can answer this. Maybe the CAB can. One of my sons is an aviation nerd and uses Plane Finder, this online app where you can track planes all around the world. It's fascinating. It's a great way of wasting a lot of time seeing planes flying around the world in real time. And you can see every single country in the world where every single plane is. But you can't see any in Botswana. Go on planefinder.net and you can't see any planes flying from routes within Botswana or to from Botswana. You can see Delta flying across the country to Atlanta, but you can't see the Air Botswana flight from Joburg to Gabs. Why is that? Maybe I don't want an answer right now, but if someone can tell me, because I think it's another educational thing. We need more education on the aviation industry because it's complicated and technical, and that's my plea. Give us more information. The last thing, as I heard that there are consumer protection regulations coming through end of the year, Doc? The consultation period, who's going to be consulted? I'm not attacking you in this particular time, but very often when new regulations, new laws go through consultation, well, they consult the experts. They don't consult consumers as much as they should do. So my plea is, can we have a period of consumer consultation? And it's online, it's 2025. That can be done much more easily in the past. So please, we need that element. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. But what is the utility of that app, really? Where you want to see which airline is flying where? Anyway.
Nerdy fun.
Oh, right. Yeah. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank my panel and also now open the floor for comments and questions and suggestions on how we could improve our aviation industry in Botswana.
To you, introduce yourself, and then you can put the question to whichever member of the panel and or connect.
Can I respond to a couple of things as well?
Yeah, since there's no hand, you can respond here.
So I think in terms of Richard's comment on, are you connecting to another flight? No airline in the world does that. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it is not done by any other airline in the world. Funnily enough, one of our airlines in South Africa, we do it, but that's because we provide a meet and greet service, so we need to know what they're connecting to. But I think that there's an awful lot of things that would be really nice to have, and I agree. I think the more information we can get, the better. I think in our own scenario, when I joined the business in 2019, we were very much a sort of low-cost mentality, and every delay that came along, and I sat on the disruption panel, and every delay and disruption that we had, it was sort of, you can't do this. Well, surely, no, that's what they signed for. And we've morphed over the years because of competition. So now, although we're not responsible for people's onward connections, and we don't do that, but if it means they are stranded up without somewhere to stay for the night, we put them in a hotel. We have a standard thing, if a flight is delayed by more than a certain amount of time, we offer drinks and then we offer meals. Sometimes we know that delay is going to be a long one, and we just do the meals and drinks straight away, because we know we will also, and this is one of the things that we've brought in, we will also tell our passengers every half an hour, we will give them an update, even if we don't know what's happening, just so that they know we are working on it, we're just not ignoring them. The point of receiving an SMS is if you book through a travel agent, under the IATA mandate, the travel agent is supposed to share the passenger's contact details with you. 90% of them do not do that because they're worried that the airline will start marketing directly to the passenger. So we don't actually get the names and contact details of the passengers. So in order to try and notify people of a delay, you end up with a travel agent. And that travel agent is not looking at their phone at 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning when you know your flight to Bulawayo is going to be delayed by a few hours. So it's not often through the lack of intent, it's the lack of the information out there. And obviously as computerization gets better, as ways of communicating become more enhanced, those sort of things will improve. And from our side, those are the sort of key things we're trying to drive, because customer service at the end of the day for us is vital. We live in a competitive space. We're a tiny airline. So competing with some of the big airlines like between Harare and Johannesburg, we compete with Airlink, we compete with Safair, much, much bigger airlines than we are. So we have to look for ways that our passengers will look and say, we want to fly FastJet. And that's what drives airlines at the end of the day, is the competition aspect and looking after their passengers. And the other passenger's obligation is to understand what they're buying. So don't expect to pay a Ryanair price and expect Pan Am Clipper class. It doesn't happen. And they need to see, the airline's responsibility is to make sure they can see what they're buying clearly, but they need to understand when they pay, they're accepting the terms and conditions of what they're buying, and that they need to understand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edmonds. We'll take a couple of questions or comments. Gentlemen, yeah, from BITC.
Thank you very much to the panel. My name is Mohamedi from BITC, and for this purpose, I'm going to ask on behalf of the consumer to Edmond or possibly any other that would take. What is the importance of an airline to have an interline or code share agreement in enhancing customer experience? Many a time when people say they fly from Europe and connecting via certain airlines, they are forced to collect their baggage or luggage in a transit territory, exposing them to, further immigration protocols and the like. What can you say about the code share, and what is it that we need to do? Because I believe that it's one area that we need to work on.
Yeah, I can answer that very easily. Interlines and code shares are very much part of the airline landscape. They are complex agreements, and often they're agreements that prejudice small carriers. So you tend to find carriers of our size. We have two interline agreements, one with Qatar Airways and one with Emirates, which we've had for many years. They're quite rewarding. But actually, when I say they're quite rewarding for Emirates and Qatar. They're not brilliant for us. But it is a way, and that is where the airline is responsible for the connection. So if you are going to buy a Gaborone to Perth in Australia flight, you want to see if you can buy it using an interline arrangement, because that's going to help you. Otherwise, when you get to OR Tambo, you have to go and collect your luggage, and then you have to go up and recheck in. Now, it may be that there isn't an interline partner on that route, in which case that's what you have to do. There are clever ways that you can sometimes get around it. So in the days of online check-in, so if you're not having any checked luggage, you can actually do it by checking in online and then just walking through the transit area. That works. But obviously, 90% of people have checked luggage, and that sort of stifles it as well. There are some new technologies. There is the development of smart airports that allow for the interlining of baggage automatically, regardless of whether there's an interline relationship with one airline or the other. We're a long way off those happening here, but I'm forever trying, because for me it would be easier to subscribe to a smart baggage transfer system than the huge amount of work to develop interline relationships. But it's something we're actively pursuing, our interline relationships. We have a whole department of people devoted to setting them up. So that's also, yeah, it is a key thing. And I would advise the consumer to, if they're concerned about that, they'll end up paying a bit more, but if they're concerned about it, buy an interline ticket.
Thank you very much.
Just before you ask that particular question, I just want to just quickly make this announcement. These 4 motor vehicles, apparently they've since blocked way for some of the motorists that actually want to go about their business. It's a B217 BUP, it's a Haval, or Haval. A B626 AWE, it's a Hilux, it is owned by BTC. B977 BVJ, it's a Toyota Raider Hilux, and a B950 BFX, it's a Paso. I have no idea what that is. But if you have any idea and it belongs to you, please just make your way quietly and assist those that which would like to navigate that path that you've since blocked. Sorry, please continue.
Let's take another round, the last round of questions. Let me just see by a show of hands how many questions and comments, because we are pressed for time. So it looks like that's only one. Then we are good. Thanks.
Thank you, MC. My name is Kibalatetse. I'm representing the Travel Agents Association of Botswana. And my question really is to Edmund. And it goes like this. How has operating in Botswana influenced FastJet's overall strategy? And what key areas do you believe still need improvement to better serve the market? Thank you.
Before you go, I want you to respond to the query that was raised here about travel agents not sharing information with passengers, yeah, with the airlines, because you don't want them to do something. Yeah.
Travel agents, or was it airlines?
No, it's travel agents. You keep the information away from the airlines.
No, as I will answer for myself as a travel agent and also the clients we serve in our membership, we believe that we relay information from the airlines to the clients timeously. And, you know, we have all sorts of communication channels with our clients, and we serve them in a very personal way. So I do not know of any instance where, as travel agents, we've been accused of not sharing information with the clients, because we receive information and we relay it to the client as timelessly as possible. Thank you.
Is it the client in this case is the airline?
So how it works with information between the airline and as the travel agent, we work mostly with what we call a global distribution system. If there's any time change, we find that the GDS usually informs us that there is a certain change on a client's itinerary. The airline, through us inserting information, whether it's client's information or our information, is obligated to communicate said changes. So I'll put it to the airlines that if we do not receive any notification, then it belongs to the owner of the equipment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll allow the panel to respond to the issues, and then we wrap it up.
Okay, maybe just on the last question that was asked on code sharing, just to say that, to the extent that code sharing places a burden and some inconvenience on the consumer, I think what we would say from the consumer protection would be that would happen the same thing that we've been saying before on information sharing, that it is important to tell the consumer what is going to happen either in transit or wherever along the way. I think we've received a number of complaints relating to information that was not shared to the consumer. I think information sharing is key. Thank you.
So I'll now respond on our experience of flying in Botswana, and what are our what strengths, weaknesses, and our plans, and that sort of thing. So FastJet Zimbabwe currently does not fly into Botswana. We flew Victoria Falls to Maun for just over a year, and we stopped that at the big end of last year. So when we launched the route, we had great intentions, and then there was a massive meltdown in the South African industry when Comair went bust. And that meant that we had to take the jet that we had allocated to Victoria Falls Maun. We needed it to fly between Victoria Falls and Johannesburg, because suddenly we were the only carrier that was flying anybody between Victoria Falls and Johannesburg. So we did a joint venture with MacAir, and we basically chartered an aeroplane 3 days a week from MacAir to keep that route flying between Victoria Falls and Maun. That route was not well received by the industry at the time, so maybe we were a bit too early. The following year, we upgauged the aircraft from a 12-seat Cessna Caravan to a 30-seat Embraer 120. And we even, to try and stimulate the traffic, went daily. And we were just not seeing the loads return. When we stopped flying it, everybody said, "Oh, that's such a shame, it's such a brilliant route." And I said, well, if it was such a brilliant route, why didn't you use it? One of the things I'm busy doing at the moment is looking to revive it, because I still believe it's a great route. And but there will be more stakeholder engagement the next time. One of the things I can say when we did launch that route is we had a terrific response here from the Civil Aviation Authority of Botswana. We had great support from them at all levels. And we also had great support from Air Botswana. Air Botswana did our handling, and we're very grateful to them for that. And we would look when we re-engage in Botswana, and we are excited to do more in Botswana. So watch this space.
Thank you very much. I'm going to allow Richard to make the last point, and then we're out of here.
Thank you. Can I just ask the audience a question? How many of you understand what code sharing is? Raise your hands if you understand what code sharing is. I don't. What percentage of consumers understand that, do you think? Zero. I'm going to be rude. No, I'm going to be polite. I'm going to say something to the aviation experts in this room, the same thing I said to the insurance industry, to the banking industry, to the telco industry, to the legal industry, to every industry. Can you please stop using funny words that we don't understand? The insurance industry is the worst. Subrogation and repudiation. No, stop using funny words that most people don't understand. Because we don't you understand it because it's your job. Consumers don't. Every industry needs to spend a lot more time thinking about how can we communicate to our consumers and explain our technicalities to them so they don't make silly mistakes. So my plea is stop using funny words. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have come to the end of the panel discussion. Let me thank our panelists, Richard Harriman, Ray Ngala, and Mr. Edmonds from FastJet. I think it's always good to end on a good note. Mr. Edmonds is grateful to Air Botswana. That's good. That's how it should be, because all the time people are always saying things about the national airline. So at least Mr. Edmonds is grateful, and that's good to hear. And then the last point is on consultations. I hear that there are going to be some new regulations, and there's a request that we share them as widely as possible. I think that's a request to CAB as well as the Ministry of Transport. Let's share so that we involve the public and have their input. So with that, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your audience.